Good morning everyone and welcome back to Piccadilly. Now, as you can see in front of you, the massive changes that took place the other day, and there are more, I'm afraid. When I started thinking about the plans for this, I discovered something else. Let me take you down and show you. It might not be immediately obvious to you there, but New Mills Tunnel, which is just there, and I'm not talking about that one, I'm talking about that one, the left-hand one, sticks out by quite a long way. Now, obviously, I don't want to get rid of that because it's an iconic part of New Mills. And so it's got me thinking, if I take this back scene out up to that line, look where the tracks are below. Let me take you around the corner. Now, I'm looking directly from above. So we've got this awkward bit where the tracks are being overlapped probably by about an inch. So that means, what am I going to do? Because I've got an overhanging building. Well, the most obvious thing is to move the tracks, which is not the thing I really wanted to do, considering I've got this junction and I've got that bit coming in from up there as well. However, the one thing that does occur to me here is that this right-hand point is not working particularly well because I've got a bit of an S-bend there and the trains do look a bit weird when they're coming out of that. So that would be good if I could address that. But secondly, at the other, if you remember, bringing down here again, I said I've got these tracks and they go into a point, if you remember, which is down there, directly underneath this bit. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to put in some straights from this point here, from these 2 points, or slight curves anyway, which would then take the tracks out further and therefore take all of that lot back this way. And then if I choose this line, which is actually powered at the moment, it's just a dead line, could actually then be curved in, and I could have maybe that right hand point as these tracks sort of come up and then swoop round. So there might be a slight curve here before they swoop round to join back with those 2 points I've just mentioned. All right, so first thing I've got to do is wet all the tracks and then disconnect the power from underneath. That's a big job. Okay, speak to you in a bit. Well, scene of carnage by the looks of it. Well, you can see I've started to lift the tracks now in some places. So, like I said, the new point, well, the new tracks will, straighter tracks will come in here, and then hopefully the new tracks will work their way around. Just take a slightly wider curve. It probably will end up a little bit sharper, but I'm hoping that I can get away with that if I make it shallow, but we'll just have to wait and see. Probably have to do something with these two as well, because that's obviously going to be coming in at the wrong angle, but I'll see what I can do at this end first, and I'll alter that accordingly. Anyway, I'm going to keep going. I'm not necessarily going to video this bit, but I'm sure you know how to lift tracks. Just wet them and prise them up as you will. All right, I'll crack on with it and I'll show you in a bit. Well, even more bleak now. Look, the track's gone. And I'll bring you down here. Those sidings have gone now. That's just black paint there, or grey paint. So I've literally just removed every ounce of evidence of track being there. And to be honest with you, because of this point that I keep mentioning, I might even take it up or take that up and relay it. I don't know at the moment. I might just do some studies with the trains that caused the issues and see if I can work out what the problem is. I might be able to get away with it, you just don't know. But don't be surprised if that comes up too. But that's quite a complicated junction to take up there, and I'd rather not do it if I can help it, to be honest. But anyway, so I'm now ready to start thinking about, I've got to undo that, but start thinking about relocating the tracks and where they're going to come. I mean, you can see from that, that's just giving an indication that I could have a much longer straight run. Well, I say much longer, probably, I'm guessing maybe another 6 inches, 8 inches, something like that. And have the curve starting here, going round, so it comes around this sort of area. I don't know at the moment. I'm going to have a think. I'll probably end up moving that block, just in case. But on the scenery front, the first thing that comes to mind, that desperately, I say desperately, it looks very much like a bridge. And I've got a bit of a lake going on down here. So why don't I turn it into the edge of a lake? I don't know. I mean, it would fit with the countryside. I could make a nice feature type bridge there, which would be quite nice. And then perhaps break the scene at that point. Do something sort of indicate that there's a crossing there. Maybe indicate that this goes over the top. Although, having said that, I must point out now that that is not tall enough to actually go across. And I don't know whether the trains on this section would cope if I raised the track. I don't know, it might be too much. But it's a thought. It's a thought. But yeah, we're definitely getting there. There's some progress been made now. So I'm going to think about the track configuration, and I'll show you when I've got that down. Right, I've managed to put some track down very roughly. So hopefully you should be able to get a flavour of what I'm saying. Now, this point here is to receive this piece of track here. It's, as you appreciate, I've unglued it, and then as it's dried out, it's set in a glaze, a bit of its crack. So I'll end up bringing this point probably about here, just to avoid that little kink. But that could then go into there, but I will need a switching on that, so it can't run straight, because it's going to have an alternating current on that, polarity change. So I'll need to address that. But on the other hand, I've got the tracks coming out of the shed again and going back into a point. Still the tracks come round, so again a much shallower angle. You could probably just about make out the shadow of the tracks, and I think they came across here. So I think we've moved out by a proportion. And if I tip you down, and then we've got, actually it'd be probably better off this way. We've got the track coming back across here, so that trains on this line can then go across to the outer line and then into the carriage shed. We've also got the points coming round and then into Piccadilly or carry on round. And we've also got another line going across that way. So trains coming out of platform 14 can then rejoin the line coming back out here. But also, when that point is reinstated down here, and I've got a point there which I could use something like that to create another siding going up here. I did have somebody say, wouldn't it have been better to have a more simple track plan? Well, I hope I've explained the reason why. Is because we've got the carriage shed over this side, and I've got Piccadilly station over this side, and obviously the main line runs through the middle, and the trains need to be able to get from anywhere to anywhere. And you know, without complicated track work, unfortunately they can't. It's one of those things. Well, I got a bit carried away. I forgot to film certain bits, but I've got some track down. Not complete by any means, but I've got the inner line down. So the main line running around there and all the way along. All the way along there. Okay. And also I've been looking at the line coming out of the shed, and it was a bit sharp. So what I've done, I'll just move the drill so you can see. It came over to about here, and so I've cut it back up to there and put a couple of straights in, allow me to get that long radius point in there. So I'm just putting that down. That's glued down now. But so tomorrow I've got the outer line to put in, and then it's the wiring, which is not my favourite. I might leave that for a day or two. And I might kind of just hope it just works on the fish plates. I did just plug everything together this afternoon, and the 68, that one did run round. So I might be all right. We'll see. I don't think I'm going to get away without wiring up the points, so am I? Well, there's one track all stuck down, as you can see. And although it's not wired up properly, I've literally just connected that on fish plates with one wire from this section. But the track is done. There you go. You can now see that both main lines are now running. Now I have to say they are not wired up as such, but they are just connected to the other parts of the track, and therefore they're running from through the fish plates. Okay. Now, if I take you down, so you can now see that the main line has now been relayed. I still need to connect up this line and also put the siding back in here, but I'll do that in time. I'm not necessarily going to rush into doing that right now. But I quite like the idea now that this is giving a much more of a sweeping curve coming round into this section, and it makes it less busy looking. It's still exactly the same junction, but it's less busy looking because it's more spaced out. So I quite like that. And the other thing as well, going into the carriage shed, you'll also notice that the lines are now coming out at a much gentler angle. You can see from the paint on the board where the lines came out before, so that was a much sharper curve. And coming out this angle is a lot nicer now, so I'm a lot more pleased about that. Okay, I've also been doing some other bits of track work, which I'll now take you over and have a look at. Right, so the other thing I've been doing is I've switched this crossover round. So all I've done is literally just take these 2 points and flip them over. You need a left and a right to make a curved crossover, believe it or not. So I just found that I wasn't using it when it was going in this direction. It was here. The reason being is because more often than not, if a train is coming from the main line down here, it comes over the crosser, over the double slip, and then ends up on this line. And if I want that train to go to New Mills, it can't. It can only go into the shed. So by having that there now, I can cross back over to this line and go all the way up to New Mills, as you can see. Okay, so that tracks round, all the way around, all the way around, all the way around, all the way around, up, and then into New Mills just there, as we've said. Now, I just want to thank everybody who's made suggestions for this area here, and some great suggestions. I had one person suggest having like a back scene in front, and then if I want to get to the tracks I can lean over. I had somebody else suggest putting embankments in, but please forgive me on that one. I'm trying to get away from the covered lift-off sections. That there is still a lift-off section which allows me to get to both sides of this track now, so I don't mind that, but I can initially see from this direction, and I don't want to cover those tracks up, as you can appreciate. So I'm now going to reveal some ideas that I've got, and then you can chip in. If you think of anything else that you think I should put in, then just say. Right, before I tell you this, it is not set in stone by any means, and if you've got any suggestions, please do say, because you might think of something I didn't, and it could be brilliant, so I don't want to miss out on that. Moving over here first. Now this back seam here is obviously an S-bend. To straighten that slightly so it goes more like that, so get rid of this little bit here, which would then give more space for trees, but it'll also allow for the kick out where that road or path goes up, if that makes sense, on new mills there. But for then that back seam to then continue right down to the edge and have the tunnels at the end of that bit there. Now you might say to me, well John, you said that this part here wasn't tall enough to get over the track at the back. Well, at the time it wasn't, and I thought I'll sort of prop it up a bit and see if a train will go up it, and it does. I've run a couple of trains. I tried it with those two there, as the 150 and the 57, and no issues whatsoever going up there, as long as it's literally just above the roof. I'm not going to run electrics up here, so it won't be a problem. So I can get away with doing that and put the tunnels at the back. Now you might also say to me, John, you're covering up that back track. Well, they'd be lift off anyway, but that back track doesn't cause any issues. The trains will just go up there as long as I can get round to clean the track from time to time and just have those sections to lift off then. That I don't mind, because that's part of general maintenance. It's when there's a problem, and it's points that normally cause the problems, as you appreciate, I'm sure, normally. So, and then what I'm thinking of then is the section going up towards the tunnels. There's a bridge, or part, you could call it a bridge. There's a bank on one side, there's a bank on this side, and there's a bridge going down to the River Goit down here. Now, I'm not proposing doing that bit, but I am proposing putting the bridge on and leaving it open, okay? So wherever you look at it, it would just form part of a different scene, although what I'm going to tell you about down here, that will just be a bridge in this scene, but then when you look at it from this side, that will be something to look over down there. Oh, I hope I'm making some kind of sense, but the two scenes will be separate zones. So build that part of New Mills going all the way up to over the bridge up to the two tunnels, and put the tunnels at the end, which is more realistic, to be honest with you. Now you'll also notice about the 3 tracks. So like I said, I wasn't using them. Now, the only downside of this is that the trains would stop in front of the tunnels, but I'm not really that bothered by that, to be honest with you. If it bothers you, then it's my layout, don't worry about it. And the other part is to perhaps take up the 3rd track, the one on the right. Okay, so that's something I'd like what you think. And then take the 2 tracks and go round the corner slightly, so bend them round into the far corner of that board, and then they go through that tunnel on the right, and that one still remains disused. So that's the first part of it. Going down to this section, well, I've now got a backboard which is running the full length down here, so put an embankment in down here. I will put that siding track or 2 back down there, but then this embankment going into a bridge or a tunnel portal into there, that can then, the scenery can then carry on into that back scene there, and there'll be a fancy bridge, a girder type bridge. I'm thinking sort of a curved top with girders coming down, something like that, and then a bit of a lake in that section just there. Now, you might also notice I've put the tunnel lift out section back on there, because my thought is to actually reinstate that back scene coming along. You're thinking, hang on, John, you said you didn't want to cover the bottom tracks. Well, I'm not. Have it going full length down here, and then just the top portion, and then where we are safe down here, have it the full length up to the edge of the board if it's appropriate, okay? And then perhaps leave this section open, because I do quite like the idea of leaning down and seeing the trains really close up, and I think that could bring in some nice photography as well. Just tidy this scene up here, make that straighter, and just I can then foliage that bit up that little bit. Okay, but then this side to have a wall from the tunnel up to the edge of the board, up to the edge of this lower board, and then, like I said, open scenery from then on in. Okay, now this bottom bit is clearly the most tricky of all. Looking at the trains going through there now, I really like that idea of seeing a train going through into the tunnel, because obviously this will be a separate zone, that's a separate zone, and Piccadilly is a separate zone when the trains come through here. Okay, now the idea partly come from Susanna, is to have an entrance or an approach into Piccadilly and treat it as an entrance into Piccadilly. So what I'm thinking of is modelled some of the buildings as relief going along the back of that back scene, so they're full-length buildings from the top up to the bottom, if it works out, and then they go into a tunnel. So it might not work out that I actually have actual buildings. I might just have to create a representation. And the style of building I'm thinking of, not in terms of architecture, but this sort of relief style. So it's literally just, a centimetre or so thick. That's the sort of thing I'm thinking of. And then that could be a large office block or whatever. And then it continue over the top. And then trains can still go through underneath. And then I have another one just sort of here if there's space. Now in the middle, I'm thinking of maybe having a couple of buildings in there, maybe even part of the street. I don't know at the moment, but I was thinking some tower blocks, that sort of thing. But again, if you've got any other suggestions for this bit, what I could put in there, what I don't want to do is pack it up so I can't get to that section over there, as I've explained on many times. So that's my current thinking. So if you've got anything that goes along with similar sort of lines, or you think there's something you could add to it or whatever, then please do say. All right. Now, I'm going to finish the video there, but if you in the top corner is going to be the first of these videos, which is explaining the big change here. And then I'm going to put in a playlist underneath to explain how I built Piccadilly and certain things that are going on around it. Catch you later. Bye for now.